Psychological oxygen. There was once a man who lived near the ocean. Every morning, the wind touched his face. The salt air entered his lungs. Birds crossed the sky. Waves moved endlessly toward the shore. Life was happening. But one day, someone handed him a small golden mask connected to an oxygen tube. Wear this, they said. It will make breathing feel extraordinary. At first, he laughed. I already breathe. But eventually, he tried it. And suddenly, breathing felt richer, warmer, more intoxicating. Colors looked brighter. Music felt deeper. The nights felt magical. So he forgot something important. The ocean had always given him air. The mask merely gave stimulation. Over time, he stopped noticing the ocean, stopped noticing the wind, stopped noticing existence itself. Now he only noticed the tube. If the tube flowed, he felt alive. If the tube weakened, anxiety appeared. If someone touched the mask, fear emerged. Then one day the person who gave him the mask walked away, and the tube disconnected. Immediately he collapsed to his knees. I am dying, he thought. But look carefully. His lungs were still working. The ocean was still there. The wind still touched his skin. Birds still crossed the sky. Nothing had happened to life. Only the psychological attachment to enhanced breathing had been interrupted. That is what psychological oxygen is. The girl was not oxygen. She became associated with emotional intensity, validation, anticipation, longing, significance, identity, stimulation. Your mind fused her with aliveness itself. So now, when you imagine her with someone else, it feels like watching another person wearing your oxygen mask, but it was never yours. And deeper still, you never needed the mask. Existence was already breathing you. That is why there is such strange confusion inside you. Part of you knows, I can still walk, hear the wind, touch nature, and another part screams, no, something essential is missing. Two realities are colliding, the reality of existence and the addiction of the psychological self. The psychological self is dramatic. It turns attachment into destiny, memory into sacred scripture, emotion into proof, craving into love. It says, without this person, life loses meaning. But go sit under a tree silently. The tree does not know your heartbreak. The sky does not know your story. The breeze does not care who left whom. Yet existence continues pouring itself toward you, quietly, patiently, as if saying, you attached yourself to a single candle and forgot the sun. And slowly, if you stay aware, something beautiful happens. You begin removing the mask. At first, it is terrifying. The mind says, you will become empty. But after some time, you suddenly feel the raw wind again, directly, not through someone. And for the first time, breathing becomes simple, ordinary, free. Imagine a man in a desert carrying a tiny music box. Whenever he opens it, beautiful music plays. And because the desert is silent, the music feels divine. Slowly, he begins to believe this music is the source of life itself. One day, the music stops. Now, suddenly, the desert feels empty. The sky feels dull. Silence feels painful. But notice carefully, the desert did not become empty. The silence was always there. The music merely distracted him from confronting the vastness. Romantic psychological oxygen works exactly like this. The romantic mind does not merely enjoy affection, it turns affection into self-definition. That is the illusion. The ego secretly says, if this person desires me, then I matter. And because that feeling is intensely stimulating, the nervous system starts associating being wanted, being texted, being touched, being chosen, being remembered with aliveness itself. This is why romance becomes addictive. Not because love is false, but because ego hijacks love and converts it into identity fuel. Then something dangerous happens. The brain starts creating emotional meaning out of stimulation. A notification becomes significance. Attention becomes worthiness. Chemistry becomes destiny. Longing becomes proof of depth. And now the illusion is complete. You no longer simply like the person. You psychologically inhale them. So when you imagine her with someone else, what hurts is not merely memory, it is oxygen deprivation for the egoic self. The mind says, if she gives that energy to someone else, then what am I? See how self centered the suffering actually is. Not selfish in a moral sense, self centered literally. The psychological self is at the center of the entire drama. That is why the body reacts. The body is not stupid. The nervous system learned this person is dopamine, anticipation, emotional reward, validation, intensity. So now imagination alone triggers biology. You think of her with someone else. Stomach tightens, chest contracts, cortisol rises, heart rate changes, craving appears. Why? Because the body memorized emotional stimulation as survival relevance. The brain does not clearly distinguish between physical survival and psychological survival. That is the illusion. The ego says, without this person, something essential is missing. But existence says, nothing essential was ever missing. Look at nature carefully. A tree does not need admiration to flower. The ocean does not need validation to move. The wind does not ask, am I still special to someone? Only the psychological self lives this way. And modern romance intensifies this illusion endlessly. Songs, films, fantasies, longing, possession, exclusivity, the one, you complete me. All of it hypnotizes the nervous system into believing another human being is the source of my inner fullness. But reality is subtler. Another person can trigger joy, awaken tenderness, create intimacy, share beauty, but they cannot become your existential oxygen unless thought turns them into it. And thought is doing this constantly. That is why silence feels healing. Because in silence, the spell weakens. You start noticing the wind again, your breath again, ordinary life again, existence without stimulation again. At first, this feels empty because the nervous system was trained on intensity, but eventually a strange shift happens. You stop craving emotional fireworks every second. You begin tasting quieter forms of aliveness, stillness, clarity, presence, walking, reading, training, nature, simple existence. Then romance becomes lighter, cleaner, no psychological suffocation, no hidden begging, please make me feel complete. Only appreciation remains. That is why awareness matters. Not suppression, not moving on, seeing. The moment you deeply see, my mind converted stimulation into psychological oxygen. The illusion starts cracking. And when the illusion cracks, the nervous system slowly stops worshipping the source of stimulation. Then love stops being addiction and becomes presence. In the end, psychological oxygen is the mind mistaking stimulation for survival. A person enters your life, and slowly the ego starts attaching meaning, identity, worth, emotional intensity, future fantasies, validation to that person. Then the nervous system learns this feeling is life, but it is not life. It is amplified self experience. And because the stimulation feels powerful, the mind calls it love, destiny, soul connection, incompleteness, loss. Yet existence itself remains untouched. The birds still sing, the wind still moves, your lungs still breathe, awareness is still here. So, what is actually dying? Not you. An identity structure, a psychological dependency, a mental continuity that borrowed another human being as its oxygen source. That is why awareness is liberation. The moment you see, my mind transformed emotional stimulation into psychological necessity, the spell begins to weaken. Not through force, not through suppression, through seeing. Then slowly, craving loses sacredness, imagination loses authority, emotional drama loses hypnosis, and something quieter emerges. You stop needing another person to prove your existence to yourself. You begin experiencing life directly again. Nature, movement, silence, breath, work, learning, presence. Then love is no longer, please complete me. It becomes, I can fully breathe on my own and still deeply appreciate your existence. That is the difference between attachment and freedom. One turns people into oxygen tanks, the other allows love without psychological suffocation.